Grandmaster Anish Giri has won the FIDE Grand Swiss 2025 and secured his place in the candidates. In this video, we'll go through his final round victory against Hans Niemann that sealed the deal and gave him the victory. So let's start with the game. Anish Giri has white pieces and Niemann is black. So Giri starts with the move c4. He's going for the English opening. Knight f6 gets played. Knight c3. e5, the reverse Sicilian. Then knight f3 gets played by Giri. Niemann plays knight c6. There are quite a few moves in this position. So g3 is one, e3 is one, d3 is one. So Giri decides to go for the less popular one, e3 move. And then in this position, Niemann plays bishop b4. So queen c2 gets played because bishop takes c3 and the pawn structure would get a bit weak, and then d6 would be there, bishop e6. So this is considered to be slightly comfortable for black. So Giri goes for just queen c2. He's like, if you want my knight, you can take it, but then I would recapture with the queen. So Niemann does that. So he gives up the bishop for the knight, and Giri gets the double bishop advantage. But basically, Niemann has a pawn in the center, and then he is ahead in the minor piece development. So he'll be like, okay, I might be able to get more activity. So and then in this position, Giri plays the move a3. So he's simply trying to improve the position because he knows that Niemann is going to play d5. He's going to play more aggressively. And then what might happen is that after this capture, maybe one of these knights could get to b4 and then create some problems. So he's just playing in a calm and composed manner. And then in this position, he goes for the move at d4. So he chooses to go for the liquidation. So he's like, all right, I'm ready to exchange the pieces because I have the double bishop advantage, and then I can slowly make a push. Now, if Niemann goes for the move e4, then there would be knight e5 and the pressure would still remain. So Niemann goes for e takes d4. As knight takes d4, knight takes d4, queen takes d4, then c5 gets played. Giri is not worried. He just brings the queen to h4. Now, bishop e6 gets played by Niemann. Giri just goes for c takes d5, and then knight takes d5 gets played. Once again, he's not averse of exchanging the queens because, as I mentioned earlier, he has double bishop advantage, and also he has yet to complete the development and the king is in the center, so he wouldn't mind exchanging the queens. So he goes for the move bishop e5 check, development of the bishop with a tempo. Then Niemann plays bishop d7. Then queen takes e7 gets played. And then Niemann plays the move knight takes e7. So now Giri goes for the move bishop e2. He knows that he should not give up his double bishop advantage so easily. So he's like, all right, the queens have been exchanged. So let me go back with the bishop. And now my king in the center won't be that big of an issue. So rook c8 gets played by Niemann. So basically he has this queenside pawn majority of 3 versus 2, while Giri has this kingside pawn majority of 4 versus 3. So Giri will try to do something there, while Niemann will try to create some activity on the queen side. Now, Giri plays an instructive move f3. So basically he knows that this bishop could get active through this diagonal. He's playing f3 and then he's planning to play e4 so that bishop's activity would be restricted. So f6 gets played, and another advantage of playing f3 is that he can slide the king over to f2. He does not want to castle here because king activity is more important now since good amount of pieces have been exchanged. So why get the king to g1? No need for king safety. So this king would be more flexibly placed on f2. And he goes with the king there. Then king f7 gets played. He improves the rook's position with rook d1. And then bishop e6 gets played by Niemann. So far we can say that the game is on the slower side. Both sides are just trying to slowly improve, while Giri is not complaining because he doesn't have any weaknesses and he has double bishops. But how to make use of it? Because Niemann doesn't have some significant weaknesses in his own position as well. But we'll see how Giri slowly but steadily improves his position. Now, by the way, before we go ahead with this game, I want to announce something. So on Chess Neurons, we are soon coming up with the feature of courses. I've already recorded some courses like exchange of pieces, restricting pieces, and open file. So, and I'm open to suggestion for more courses. So please let us know in the comments what courses you would want on chessneurons.com. And there is a good chance that I might make one of them that you would suggest in the comments. So please stay tuned for the upcoming feature of courses on Chess Neurons, and please make your recommendations in the comments. So let's get back to the game. Now, Giri played the move h4. See, I had mentioned earlier, he has the pawn majority on the king side, so he's slowly trying to make a push there. Then Niemann played b6. So now Giri played the move e4. He's like, all right, let's push this pawn. So now he can develop the bishop as well. So he has to be careful because every pawn move weakens some squares. So pawn is not on e3, so this square has gotten weak. So Niemann immediately brings the knight there to bring the knight to the d4 outpost square. But Giri is not worried. He develops the bishop and covers the square. Now Niemann plays the move knight a5. So he wants to play maybe knight b3 or even bishop c4 in some line. So although there is rook d7, but such ideas can be there. So in this position, Giri plays the move rook d6. Rook e8 is played. Then g4 in this position. So now, once again, now he's starting to slowly but steadily increase the pressure on the king side where he has the pawn majority. Knight b7 gets played. He plays rook d2. Knight f5 gets played again. Knight b3 is a threat. So he plays rook d6. Wait, is Giri ready for the draw? No, he's not looking for the draw. But sometimes when we repeat the positions like this, it gives our opponent a small hope that, oh yeah, now the draw would happen. But then Giri, instead of bringing the rook back to d2, he brought the rook to d1 and sort of dashed the hopes of Niemann of a draw. So yeah, psychological game. And then in this position, Niemann played knight f5. He's like, all right, rook on d2, rook on d1. Not a big deal. I'll just bring my knight to a5. So now Giri improves the rook's position with rook a c1. Then king e7 gets played by Niemann. Then Giri plays the move bishop a6, improving the bishop's position and trying to remove the rook from the c file. So what's the reason? We'll see. In this position, so both the rooks are on this open file. And then Giri plays rook takes d8. A bit of a puzzling decision. Why is he giving control of the open file to Niemann? There is only one open file. See, the idea of removing the rook from c8 behind the bishop a6 was to play b4. So Giri was not worried about this open file, but now he wants to open this file and then bring the rook on the 7th rank, put the pressure over here and try to restrict this knight. And this is already things are not going that great for Niemann. Then he goes for the move knight b3. Giri is not worried. He's like, all right, I'll play the move rook c3. I'll keep the pressure on this pawn. Some pressure is there on this knight. This knight is quite restricted. That's a problem. And then in this position, Niemann plays the move rook d6. So he recognizes that, yeah, now this pawn is a bit weak. But what in this position? What if he had played the move c takes b4? What would have happened? So the thing in this position is that if he had played that, then after a takes b4, where will the knight go? Because if the knight goes to d4, then rook c7 check. There is no rook d7 because of this exchange. And the knight will go. And then another problem in this position is that whatever he does, there can be this idea of g5 that Giri can play, maybe f4. So the problem for Niemann is that his pieces are stuck. The knight is not doing anything. And then that creates serious problems for him. So that's why he decided that, all right, let's just sacrifice a pawn. But then he would be able to defend in an easier manner. But then Giri played the move b takes c5, b takes c5. So he found a really nice way to win the c5 pawn, that is by playing rook takes b3. So the point in this position is that if rook takes a6 gets played, then there is bishop takes c5 check and the rook would get to b7. So for example, if this, then there is this. Now if king d7, by the way, because now rook b7 would be a mistake because of this, but then Giri would actually play something like rook b8, and then he can start putting pressure on the king side pawns as well. This bishop is doing a really nice job of defending this pawn and putting pressure on this pawn as well. So then after rook takes b3, Niemann decides to go for bishop takes b3, and then he's like, all right, he's down a pawn, but he should be able to defend. So now Giri goes for the move g5. So he's trying to exchange some pawns on the king side to create a pass pawn. Niemann goes for bishop e6. Giri improves the king's position. Then king f4 gets played. King d4. G takes f6. G takes f6. And now this position might seem like, wait, Giri is up a pawn, but Niemann's king is quite active. What will Giri do? So he cannot push this pawn. So this, making use of the pawn majority is quite difficult. What is he going to do? So we'll see what his plan is. So he played a4. First of all, he's like, all right, let me get my pawn to a5 and then I'll try to figure something out. So h6 gets played and then he plays the move a5. Then bishop d7. So it's very important for Niemann. He cannot go for this king c5, king b4 type of ideas because the moment he moves the king, there will be e5. After this exchange, there is this. This pawn will get pushed and that will be just lost for him. So he knows that he cannot move this king, otherwise e5 will happen. So he goes for the move bishop d7. But how does Giri make progress? So in this position, he has a really instructive move, that is bishop e2. What is he trying to do with this move? So his plan is in this position to play bishop d1. Then he can go for bishop b3. Then he can go for bishop f7. Then bishop g6 and then bishop f5. So the plan of his is to remove the bishop from the diagonal and then he can play maybe bishop c8 and then get the king forward as well. And yeah, slowly but steadily things will be just it will be just lost for Niemann. So for example, let me just demonstrate. So bishop e6 gets played, bishop d1. This is the idea. Niemann stops that by playing this and bishop b3. And we have already established that if the king moves, then there will be e5 and that will be game over. Niemann plays something like this, then there is bishop f7. If this, there's bishop g6. If this, then there is bishop f5 and a bishop b7 or something. Then Giri can play bishop g4. Everything is well defended. Then king f5, king f6, and he would be winning. So this was the maneuver of his. So he will eventually get his bishop on this diagonal, and that will be too much for Niemann to handle. So Niemann is like, all right, let's play king c5 now. But once the king moves, there is time for e5. Then king d5 gets played. Capture, king e6 gets played, just f7 in this position. So the king gets restricted and then there is king e5. Now this pass pawn will get pushed. It will be bishop c4. So basically this can get pushed to f6 and then he can also target this a7 pawn. This is just too much for Niemann to handle and then he resigned. So a really patient play by Giri, slow and steady piece improvement. Actually, Niemann did not even make a big mistake in this game, but then because of the double bishops, because of that king side pawn majority, because of that open c file that Giri got with that b4 pawn break, so those were small but instructive moments that won him this game, and now he has qualified for the candidates. So congratulations to Anish Giri and wish him all the best for the candidates tournament. Thanks everyone for watching the video and I'll see you in the next one.